Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Live from My Drum Room. This is actually my 50th episode. And I had planned and hoped to do a really special 50th episode. But I can't think of a better way than to paying tribute to my friend and hero, Charlie Watts, my absolute all time favorite drummer, biggest influence, all that stuff. Charlie was it. Um, Anybody who knows me and even people who don't know me, I think know that. So it's been a really tough week this week, getting that news on Tuesday. Uh, definitely, I was upside down for a few days. I want to thank everybody who reached out. Um, I apologize. I just sort of had to shut my phone down and just, you know, uh, I was in no place to like be answering phone calls and texts and messages and things like that. I'm still not, but thanks to everybody who checked in and expressed their condolences to me. It made me feel really good that people cared that much to think of me when we lost Charlie, because that was where my focus was. But thank you, everybody. Um, I plan to do more of these tributes. I've had some ideas of what I want to do, involving some other drummers, some friends that I've heard from or that I know if I reach out to them, I have no doubt would want to be involved in paying tribute to Charlie. So that'll be in the coming weeks. But I saw so many beautiful, touching tributes from so many people in the past few days that I just thought it inspired me to want to say something and talk about Charlie for a minute. Um, and maybe I'm already saying things that people already know, but Charlie, I'll just say this, that when I think back to how I got started playing the drums, it was Ringo that made me want to be a drummer, I guess you could say, in the mid 60s and the late 60s. When I started to really get interested in music, it was the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all those bands. And I guess it was Ringo that sort of put that little bit of a germ of an interest, and being a drummer. But it was really listening to Charlie Watts, specifically Exile on Main Street in 1972, that made me want to play the drums. That just set off this kind of, explosion in my brain. My sister, who's 5 years older than me, the summer of 1972, when that record came out, she played it nonstop, and I was just captivated by it. That particular album, and that turned me on to all these other Rolling Stones records. But Exile on Main Street was the catalyst in me really wanting to play the drums. And I went up and bought a pair of drumsticks, and I would air drum along to all those songs. And my best friend Mike Mahoney, who lived next door, gave me an old snare drum that he had sitting downstairs in his basement. And that set me on my path that summer of 1972. And then that December, on my 12th birthday, which is the week before Christmas, my dad gave me my first drum set, and I was off to the races. But it was really Charlie. That was my main influence then. And I listened to other drummers over the years, but he was always ground zero. And Exile on Main Street, I think of as sort of ground zero to my drumming path. And so few of us get to meet our heroes. It's one thing to meet your hero. It's another thing to know him or her and call them your friend. And that's what still, 25 years after meeting Charlie, still blows my mind that we were friends. And I spoke with him as recently as 2 months ago on his 80th birthday in June 2nd. And we had a great conversation, and he asked how I was doing and if my band was playing. And, um, we hope to see each other on the road sometime this year. And so, yeah, it's been a tough week. There's been so many, beautiful things that people have said about Charlie, his generosity, I can certainly attest to that. His sense of humor, he had an amazing sense of humor, very dry wit, so many funny things that I just remember him saying over the years. And I'll share some of those things maybe another time. Um, but I just started just thinking about all these different things over the last 25 years, time that I've spent with him and conversations we've had, whether it be before a gig, before a Rolling Stone show or a telephone call, or in London. I met with him many times in London and had lunch and coffee, and he really was a great friend, and he remembered things. He was somebody that I might not speak with him for 6 months or longer, and he'd remember something that I might have said the last time we spoke or when I saw him a year before. And I'll just share this one, what I think is kind of a funny but very cool story. Is this was about 5 years ago. The Rolling Stones played a private show for Bob Kraft, who's the owner of the New England Patriots football team. So those of you who don't know who that is. And so it was a local show here in the Boston area. It was a private show for the Kraft family. And Charlie invited me to come to the show. And it was great because, I don't know, there were like 200 people in the audience. It was a tent in midfield at Foxborough, Gillette Stadium. It was in October and it was really cold outside. So it was covered and it was warm. But the best thing about it was the fact that it wasn't 60,000 people, much more manageable. And it wasn't a lot of the sort of logistics that go with a Rolling Stone show in terms of Charlie having to do meet and greets and those types of things. So basically I got there, Don McCauley, Charlie's tech, brought me in, met me outside, brought me in. I had some dinner and catering, and then Don took me to Charlie's dressing room where I hung out with Charlie for like an hour, before the show. And we had just the two of us having a conversation, talking about drums. I was showing him pictures of my vintage drum sets, and he was very interested. And we were talking about old cymbals, and we had a conversation pretty in depth, which we had never had in all that time, that I really was able to get finally some information about the cymbals that he used in the old days, which he didn't remember really well, but I was sort of jogging his memory on certain things. But then at one point he said to me, "Come with me to Ronnie's dressing room for a minute. I've got to talk to Ronnie about something." So we go into Ronnie Wood's dressing room, which is just next door, a couple of doors down. And Ronnie's in there, and he's with his wife, and he had two twins, babies. Well, usually twins are two. So he had these newborns, twin newborns. So, and Ronnie had sketched, which he does. He sketched like the set list for the night on this easel back that looked really cool. And I took a picture of it. I've got it somewhere. And they're chatting about something, and then Charlie says to Ronnie, "You remember John?" And Ronnie said, "Oh yeah, the Zildjian guy." And Charlie said, "Not anymore. He quit. Now he plays them." And I should back up and say that prior to that, we had been talking about, he was asking me about, playing in a band again. And so he, what I took away from that, and as I drove home that night, I thought about it. He was acknowledging me as a drummer, which is just like, made my head want to explode. It was so amazing, because I met him as a guy working for Zildjian and the drum industry. And but he was really the reason why I wanted to play the drums. And here he was now acknowledging that. And another time I had a phone call with him, and we were on the phone, and I was coming to London, and I said, I'm going to be in London for, about 5 days, and maybe we can have lunch. And he said, yeah, call me when you get here. He said, are you playing anywhere? Is your band playing, or are you playing anywhere? And I sort of laughed to myself, and I thought, I said, no, I'm just coming for a visit. And I thought, would you have come to see me play if I was playing? And maybe he would have, I don't know. But so all these things have gone through my mind, and a million other things that I'll always remember, and I really, I'm kind of really just scraping the surface with some of these stories, but he was an amazing guy. His drumming to me stands on its own, and will stand the test of time, as they say. I did also want to say, and and anyone who takes this as a dig, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not really that sorry. But to all those drummers that are finally talking about how great a drummer Charlie was, all I can say is, what took you so long? I've been saying this for 50 years, and I, no sour grapes, but I can remember having conversations with people who, dismissed Charlie's simplicity and his his playing for the song style as being, equating that to being not a good drummer, because he wasn't flashy, because he didn't play a lot of drum fills. And but it's so good to see how many people have come around to understanding how important he was, and how great he was, and the genius of his playing. I just want to warn you that I'm probably going to do one of these live from my drum room episodes down the road, where I'm going to do a little style and analysis breakdown of Charlie's playing on some songs, because I've been living this shit for 50 years, man. And this is people that I know that are Charlie fans. We talk about this stuff endlessly, and I got a lot to say about it. You don't have to listen to me, but I got a lot to say about it. And he was deep. He was really deep in what he did. And even he, I don't think, understood how deep he was with the way he approached playing songs, and the way he phrased certain things, what he played, what he chose not to play, what he chose to leave out. His elastic feel on certain songs, where there was a give and take, a push and a pull, a tension and release to the way he played. All those things, I don't think he was ever really that conscious of what he was doing. He was just playing. He was feeling it, just feeling the music, feeling the groove, and that's what came out. But that's what's stayed with me all these years, is just how special and how unique he was. And not an easy guy to copy, in terms of his feel. Very special. So anyway, I've got a few things here this was something that this was from a Vic Firth ad when they first introduced the Charlie Watts drumsticks. And my wife, who was Vic Firth's daughter, obviously, who was working for Vic Firth at the time, had this made for me as a surprise. She was just my friend, and she knew how much of a Charlie fan I was, and it was pretty cool. Charlie gave me these. I'm pretty sure Charlie gave me these right out of his stick bag I want to say sometime in the 90s when I first got to know him. And I think they look different now. I think, well, I think Vic has since, hopefully you can hear me. I think Vic Firth has since added the American flag onto the logo, but these are older Charlie Watts Vic Firth sticks that I've held on to. And this was just something that I, at a rehearsal, at one of their rehearsals in Boston years ago, I brought him a few cymbals to try out. And I think he'd even said he wanted to check a few things out, which was great. You know, he did, but he rarely ever kept anything. I mean, he had to really like something to keep it. And I'll talk more about that stuff another time too. But anyway, this was one that he didn't like. So I asked him to sign it for me. I brought it and he hit it a couple of times. He went, it's a little heavy. It's a little, you know, and it is. It's an older A Zildjian, you know, from the early 2000s, and nothing special. So he signed it for me, and I remember him saying to me something like, maybe, you know, something like, you know, maybe you can sell that and make a few dollars. And I said, Charlie, you know, I laughed. I know he was kind of kidding and being sarcastic, but that was becoming a thing at the time, you know, people selling. Now that, of course, it's a big thing now, but it was just becoming a thing, the whole memorabilia thing. And I said, Charlie, of course I would never sell anything that you signed for me. You know, that's for me. But anyway, I'm going to close out by saying that, you know, what I've been thinking about these past few days is, besides all these great memories, is I'm glad that he knew how much I loved him. He hated when I would, compliment him or praise him. When anyone did that, that was a genuine thing. He was genuinely humble. I think it really made him uncomfortable when you said, wow, that was great. Or you played so great on that song. And I love what you did here. He'd be like, well, no, he wouldn't do that. But he's not someone that wasn't someone that was ever fishing for a compliment. Of course, anybody who knows anything about him knows that. But he did know that I really, I wasn't just some casual observer. I kind of really knew his stuff. We'd get into conversations about, certain songs and certain things. And so I think he had an understanding that I was more aware of his catalog, his work, than, just the average guy, so to speak. So anyway, I don't know, maybe that's just something that makes me feel better about it, but he really was a really great guy, a really, really special guy. And we've lost a giant. We really have. And I'll just say this, that I think, there are a lot of different mindsets in terms of, what it means for the future of the Rolling Stones without Charlie. And I can't say he ever told me this personally, but knowing what I know about him, I have to think he would say, go on without me. I think Steve Jordan is a phenomenal drummer, and I think he's going to do an amazing job. And I think there are a handful of guys that could, no one could fill his shoes, but could at least assume that chair, and Steve Jordan is certainly right there at the top, along with Charlie Drayton or Jim Keltner or me. But yeah, we'll see what happens, We'll see what happens. But thanks for watching this. If you're watching this, if you've made it this far, I'll come back again soon. Like I said, I'm going to actually plan some things and get some other drummers with me talking about Charlie, and we'll do a few of these kind of tributes and get some people to tell some stories and keep his memory alive. So, and look at that, huh? I bet I probably can't find another one of these shirts now, but I may have to get another one. So thanks for watching, everybody. Episode 50 of Live from My Drum Room. And I'll see you soon. All right. Peace. Over and out.